The special favor of Allah, Allah. The universe is the body and its soul. Allah,
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyid al-Mursaleen. Amma ba'd, fa'awudhu billahi min shaitan rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. As-salatu wassalamu alayka ya Rasulullah wa ala alika wa ashabika ya Habiballah. As-salatu wassalamu alayka ya Nabi Allah wa ala alika wa ashabika ya Nur Allah. Viewers of Madani Channel, welcome to this special series of programs, Yesterday, Today and Tomorrow. And in this series of programs, we want to look into our rich heritage, our past, look at the past of our pious predecessors, go as far back as the companions of the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and learn something from their life. Learn something from the past, learn something from yesterday, so that we can make a change today and have a better tomorrow. Let's give you a blessing of reciting Durud Pak upon the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When we give you this blessing with the intention that, one, it encourages you to make it part of your routine to recite Durud Pak upon the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because when you hear these blessings and you realize that I can achieve so much by reciting Durud Pak, then why shouldn't I do it? And at the same time, if you can remember these blessings and pass them on to other people so that other people can benefit as well. So the blessing of Durud Pak that we're going to give you today, the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, a very, very easy one to remember and a very, very easy one to act upon as well. The Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that whoever recites salat upon me just 3 times during the day and 3 times during the night with love and devotion, Allah Azza wa Jal will forgive the sins he committed during the day and the sins he committed during the night. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. How easy can it get? How easy can it get to get your sins forgiven by just reciting Durud Pak upon the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? What? 3 times during the day and 3 times during the night. There's only one condition: with love and with devotion. And all the lovers of the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if you please make a habit of reciting Durud Pak upon the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Today we're just giving you an example of 3. Reciting it 3 times. But why stop at 3? Try and recite Durud Pak in abundance. And whenever you hear a blessing of reciting Durud Pak in which you are told that if you recite it in abundance, then the scholars of the deen have said that those people that recite Durud Pak 313 times a day, then they will be classed amongst those people that recite Durud Pak in abundance. So please make it your routine on a daily basis. And we've said it before many, many times that during our day, our lives are such that although we have very, very hectic lives, we have very, very busy lives, but during the day there are times where we are waiting for things to happen. We're waiting for things to happen. You may be in a doctor's surgery waiting to see the doctor. You may be at a bus stop waiting for the bus. You may be on the bus traveling. You may be traveling to work. And all of this time, in some of this time you're waiting, and some of this time you can multitask. For example, you can be driving your car to work. Whilst driving your car to work, what is stopping you from reciting Durud Pak upon the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? So please make it a habit. Please make it part of your daily routine. And who knows, viewers of Madani Channel, that one extra Durud Pak that you recite today might make all the difference on the day of judgment. So please make an intention of reciting Durud Pak upon the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Viewers of Madani Channel, today we are going to talk about the privilege of listening to some Madani pearls about the piety of the parents of Ghos Pak, his upbringing and the surrounding atmosphere that he had and the impact that it had upon him. Sayyidina Ghos Pak, rahmatullah ta'ala, he was born into an extremely pious family, a great family, and his family was very famous for their piety. His mother's name was Fatima, the daughter of Sheikh Abdullah. Her final appellation was Al Khair, and her title was Kaniz of Allah Azza wa Jal. Sayyidina Ghos Azam's father's blessed name was Sayyid Musa, and his appellation was Abu Saleh, and he was given the title of Jangi Dost. And inshallah later on in the program we'll explain to you how we got this name of Jangi Dost. Now, Sayyidina Ghos Pak, before we continue, just to let you know a little bit about the lineage of Ghos Pak. And it's very important to understand this. Sayyidina Ghos Pak was a Hassani Sayyid from his father's side and a Hussaini Sayyid from his mother's side. So his father's side, the lineage went back all the way back to Imam Hassan radiyallahu ta'ala. And on his mother's side, the lineage went back all the way to Imam Hussain radiyallahu ta'ala. So what a great family that he was brought up into. And Sayyidina Ghos Pak's father, Sayyidina Abdullah Abu Salih Musa Jangi Ghos, was amongst the well-known men of distinction of the time. He was well known at the time as being a very, very pious person. And I just want to share with you an event that will explain to you the piety, the taqwa, the God-fearing of the father of Sayyidina Ghos Pak radiyallahu ta'ala. It is stated that once during his devotional and spiritual exercises, Sayyidina Ghos Pak's father, he was very, very hungry. And he was sitting on a riverbank when an apple came, it floated down the riverbank. He picked up the apple and he ate it. But later on he thought to himself, that whose apple is this? It's not my apple. I've eaten somebody's apple without their permission. So he thought, how can it possibly be halal for me to eat this apple without the permission of the owner? So he made a mindset that what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up the river, I'll follow up the river, and I'll find out who the owner of this apple was, and I'll seek his forgiveness and seek his permission for eating this apple, although he'd already ate it. So he went up the river, he started walking up the river, and he saw that on the riverbank there was a big place, and there was a tree there, and the tree was overhanging its branches, and he could see that apples were actually falling into the river. So he looked for the owner, and when he found the owner, he said to him that, look, I've ate this apple from you, and this person, the person that he met was Sayyidina Abdullah Su'ami Rahmatullah Ta'ala, and he was the owner of the orchard and the building that was there well. And Sayyidina Abu Salih Musa went to him and related the whole incident, and he made an apology. Now, when this incident was related to him, this person, he realized that this person in front of me, he's not an ordinary person, he's a very, very pious person. And he also realized that this person was a wali of Allah, a beloved person of Allah. So he said to him, you need to serve me for 12 years. Serve me for 12 years and then your apology will be accepted. Allahu Akbar. Viewers of my channel, just imagine now being in that similar situation. That you meet someone, you've ate their apple, and they say, look, you have to serve me for 12 years. What would our attitude be? What would our attitude be that, well, forget this, I'm not going to serve you 12 years, only an apple. But Ghos Pak's father, he realized that if I want to seek the forgiveness, if I want to make what I've done halal, if I don't want to be punished on the Day of Judgment for this, then I have to accept whatever he had said. So he accepted it. And he happily served him for 12 years. And after that period had ended, Sayyidina Abdullah Su'ami Rahmatullah Ta'ala said to him, there is one more service that I want you to do. There's one more thing that I want to do and then you're free. And he said, okay, explain to me. Abu Salih Musa Jangi Rahmatullah Ta'ala said, explain to me, what do you want? He said, I have a daughter. I have a daughter. However, she is blind. However, she is deaf as well. And she is disabled by her hands and she's also lame, she cannot walk as well. You have to serve for 2 more years after performing the nikah with her. Then after that, you can go wherever you want. Now, Sayyidina Abu Salih Musa, Rahmatullah, the father of Ghos Pak, he accepted this. He accepted this. And so the nikah was performed. And the moment he saw the face of his wife, he was astonished to see that all the parts of her body were safe and sound, and she was extremely beautiful. Even the night, he said that even the night of the full moon stood nowhere before her beauty. Now, after remembering what the daughter's father had said, he didn't approach her because he thought that this is not that same person. I've come into the wrong room, I've made a mistake here. So he went back out and he related the whole event, the whole incident to Sayyidina Abdullah Sawami, Rahmatullah, the father of the bride that was in the bride room. And he said, whatever attributes I've mentioned to you are correct. Word for word, he said, she is blind to Namaram. She's never seen a Namaram. She is deaf to something that is not right. She's never heard anything that is not right. She's disabled by the hands for structuring strange men and lame for moving against the commands of Allah Azza wa Jal. Allahu Akbar. Having heard this, Sayyidina Abu Salih Musa Jangi Rahmatullah developed a great respect for his wife in his heart, and they both started living happily together. Viewers of Madani Channel, I've said it before, but when the events of the past are recorded and maintained and brought to us many, many centuries later. There's a reason there. Not just because it's a good story. Okay? It sounds like a good story, doesn't it? That he was sat there, he ate the apple, and he went all the way up there, and he found this orchard, and he served him for 12 years, and there's this. Okay, nice story. But so what? It's not just a story. Within the story, there's a message there for us. So all these events of the past that were kept there, they were kept there for a reason. These events were maintained for a reason. And in this particular story, one we hear, what do we find out from this? We find out the piety, the God-fearing, the taqwa that the father of Ghos Pak, rahmatullah ta'ala, had. And we also find the status of the mother of Ghos Pak, that she was a woman, that she was blind to na-mahram. She'd never seen a na-mahram person. She'd never heard bad. She'd never touched a na-mahram. She'd never walked towards bad. And this was the upbringing, the parents of Ghos Pak. That on one hand you had the father, that was such a God-fearing person, that for the sake of one apple, he sought the forgiveness of the owner and accepted the demands of the owner that to serve him for 12 years, to marry his daughter that he was told. He was told that she's blind. He was told that she's deaf. He was told that she's lame. He was told that she couldn't use her hands. And he accepted that. He didn't know that she was blind to saying she was deaf to hearing bad things. He didn't realize that. He accepted that. Why? Because he didn't want to be held accountable for that one apple on the Day of Judgment. And so from this, what we learn the upbringing, that the household, the family that Ghos Pak was born into, what a pious family was. On one side, you got the father that is so God-fearing. On the other side, you got the mother as well. And remember, both of these, as I've said before, both of these were Sayyids. Allahu Akbar. Both of these were lineage back to the Prophet of Allah, sallallahu ta'ala wasallam. But also, viewers of Madani Channel, we also learn from this that it is very, very important to maintain the rights of people. You know, nowadays we take things without even thinking. I remember there was one shop that I used to go to, an Asian grocery shop. And what they had is they had these big buckets of, dry fruit, of pistachios, of almonds, of sultanas, and things like this. And there was one customer that used to come in, and eventually he was caught. But what he used to do is, he used to go to the back of the shop to order the meat. But as he was going past this bin, he used to put his hand in, grab up a hand of almonds, and as he was waiting for his meat to be cut, he'd be eating these almonds. And he not paid for them. And one day the owner saw this a few times. He forgave him a few times, but one day he grabbed hold of him. He grabbed hold of him and kept his hand closed. And he dragged him to the till, made him open his hand onto the till so that he could weigh them almonds. And he said, "Don't worry, I'll put it on your bill. I'll put it on your bill." And that person was now shamed that and he was astonished that why I've only picked up a few almonds. What's wrong with that? But them almonds cost money. Yeah. And so people, they pick up at a stall, you may be at a stall and people are selling fruit there, they may be selling grapes there, cherries there, whatever it is, and you say, "Oh, I'll just try a few." Without the permission of the owner, you cannot try that fruit. So if the owner says to you, if you say to the owner, "Look, can I check if these grapes are okay?" And he said, yeah, try it. Or these cherries are okay, or whatever it is, I want to try it first. And if he gives you permission, otherwise you have to buy it and then use it, then try it. But that is just one example with fruit. What about the other things? What about other things where we take things without people's permission? We take people's car without the permission. We spend people's money without their permission. We utilize their things without their permission. We borrow some things from someone. "Oh, can I just make a quick phone call? I've only got a 2-minute call. It's only going to be 2 minutes." And then you take the phone off them and you're on the phone for half an hour. They give you permission for 2 minutes, no more than 2 minutes. You ask for 2 minutes and you've used that phone for half an hour now. You didn't take permission for that. So this is usurping the rights of people as well. You want to borrow someone's car. "Oh, can I borrow your car? I just need to go to the shop." Where's the shop? The shop's half a mile away. You take the car, you come back 3 hours later and you've gone a 50-mile trip in the car. Even if you put petrol in the car, then still you've utilized that car without the permission of the owner as well. So all of these things that unfortunately what happens is, viewers of Madani Channel, we don't think them as significant. We think they're so insignificant. It doesn't matter. I put petrol in the car. It's only a few almonds. It's only a few cherries. It's only a few grapes. It was only a few extra minutes. He's got unlimited minutes anyway, so what difference does it make? It does make a difference, because you've not had permission for this. And you've utilized someone. People borrow things. People borrow a pen off someone and they never give the pen back. People borrow money off people and they never give it back. Years go by. And then what happens is the person that gave the money to the person, he feels embarrassed to ask for the money. Because it's been so long now and he thinks, well, how can I ask for the money now? Now he doesn't want to forgive him. Because he needs that money, but he's got no choice because it's been so long now. He keeps on promising and then what happens is, or he's avoiding him. I've even heard of people, that once they've taken the money off someone. I remember there's someone, he had a lot of money, he'd taken a lot of money off people. And he was in quite a big debt. And I said to him, do you not worry about how you're going to pay this money back? You've got so much debt on your head, how are you going to ever pay it back? He said, why should I worry? I said, what do you mean, why should you? It's your debt. He said, no, the person that should be worried is the person that's giving me. I've got nothing to worry about, I've got the money now. He's the one that should be worried about when I'm going to give it back. He's the one that should be worried about how I'm going to give it back. Not me, I've got the money now. This again is the wrong mindset to have. Whenever you borrow even a pen of someone, anything of someone, a sheet of someone, a pen of someone, tools of someone. This is another thing viewers on the channel. People borrow tools. They borrow spanners of someone, a drill of someone, or whatever it is of someone. They'll borrow that and they never give it back. They'll forget about it. Books, another thing. People borrow even Islamic books. People borrow Islamic books off you. And they never give you them back. Even though inside the book you've written your name on inside the book, that this is my book, this is owned by me, and you put your name on it. I've got a habit, viewers on the channel, that when I read a book, I sign it inside and I put the date that I read it. So that next time I pick up the back, I can look at it and think, oh, I read it back in that year. I need to read it again now. So I keep a record of the books that I read. So if anybody takes my books, it's got my signature in it. It's got the dates that I read the book in it. But I sometimes don't get the books back. Again, usurping people's rights. And we don't take it serious. We think, what is it? It's only a book. What is it? 20p book, 50p book, a pound book. A pen that's only worth 10p, 20p. What difference does it make? And this, making sure that you do not usurp people's rights and making sure that that is utilized for what is going to be utilized. Another example is we'll use things that cannot be used by us. For example, inside the masjid. There are things in the masjid that are there for the masjid. They're not for you. They're not for you. Oh, I like this chair. Nobody's using it. I'll take it home. Yeah? Or even if you fill up water from the masjid, that water in the masjid is for the masjid. Nowadays in our masjids in the UK, we've got all, people have set up sanitizers and gloves and all these sort of things. If you take them gloves or you take them sanitizers home, then that is wrong as well. I've seen it at petrol stations. I've seen videos on social media where people at petrol stations and there's gloves there for people that, they put gloves on them so that when they're putting diesel in the car, they can wear these gloves. And what they're doing is they're taking all the gloves out of the thing, putting them in the car and taking home all these gloves for free. Again, this is wrong, viewers of Madani Channel. I'll give you a beautiful incident that I want to share with you. There's a beautiful incident I want to share with you, and then inshallah we'll go to the package. Nigarani Shura, Haji Imran Atari, the head of Majlis Shura of Dawat Islami. This is a personal experience. Many, many years ago, I think I'd only been in the environment of Dawat Islami a very short time. And I'd gone to Fazana Medina in Karachi in Pakistan. And I'd met some of the brothers there. And Nigarani Shura had found out that somebody had come from the UK. And he requested that he wanted to meet that person that had come from the UK, I myself. He didn't know me. And so what happened was, I was downstairs in one of the offices, and they got a phone call, and they said that Nigarani Shura wants to meet you. Now, I didn't know much about the status of Nigarani Shura, that I didn't know much about the structure of Dawat Islami, but I'd realized that he was the head of the functional department of Dawat Islami. And everyone said, wow, you got an opportunity to meet him. So I thought, okay, good. So I went there, and I don't know if people have been to Fazana Medina. At the moment, when you go into Fazana Medina, you go up the steps on the right-hand side, there's some cabins, some offices, and that's where his office was. I went there to meet him. And when I went there, he was talking, he gave me salam, asked me everything. And then he said to me, there's certain things I want you to find out for me. Now, I had a pad in my top pocket. So I took the pad out, I opened the pad, but I realized I didn't have a pen. I didn't have a pen. So the questions he was going to ask me, how I was going to make a note of them, but I saw there was a pen on the table. So I asked him, can I use that pen? And he said, yes. So I picked up the pen, and he was asking all these things, like, can you find out in the UK about the masjids there, about the situation there, and let me know all this information. I said, fair enough, no problem. So I made notes of all this, and then, because he went quiet, I'd realized that whatever he wanted to ask, he'd asked. So I said, Huzur, please give me your du'as and give me permission to leave now. He said, yeah, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. He gives salam, I give salam. I put the pad in my pocket, I put the pen in my pocket, came out and went downstairs. When I went downstairs, the brothers were asking, what did he ask? What did he ask? And I said, well, he was just asking, generally about the UK. Okay. What did he ask specifically? So I pulled out the pad, and when I pulled out the pad, obviously the pen was there now. And when I pulled out the pad, the pen came in my hand. I said, this is not my pen. This is Nigrani Shura's pen. I've taken his pen. And they said, okay, what we'll do is we'll phone him up and we'll ask him if you can keep it as a gift. Yeah, that way you can say you've got Nigrani Shura's pen. I said, okay, brilliant. So they phoned him up. And when they phoned up Nigrani Shura said, no. Tell him to come back right now with that pen. So I started looking at the pen and thinking, what's so special about this pen? And, viewers of Madani Channel, that pen was probably, if you were to buy a similar pen in the shop, it would cost you probably 10 rupees, which in current money is 5 pence. So I'm thinking to myself, what is this pen that he wants it back? Then I thought, maybe, just maybe Amir Sunnah give it him. Maybe it's special because somebody gifted it to him and he wanted to keep it. So all these thoughts are going through my mind as I'm walking up the steps to the office. I go into the office, I give him the pen. He looks at me and he smiles. And he says to me, you're probably thinking why I wanted this pen. I couldn't lie. And I said, well, yeah, obviously, yeah, it's not a very expensive pen, is it? He said, the thing is, brother, this pen is not mine to give. This pen was purchased for use inside Fazana Medina, for Fazana Medina usage. Nobody can use this for personal use. And that taught me a great lesson, viewers of Madani Channel. Taqwa. That nowadays what happens is we go into the masjid, we put the lights on, we leave the lights on, we open the taps, we leave the taps running, we have the fans running, we waste all of this electricity and water and everything. And this is all part of the funds that people have given to you, and you have utilized this, and you are now wasting these funds. So again, we need to be very, very careful about these sort of things as well, that we don't waste things that have been entrusted to us. As people in the masjid, then funds have been entrusted to us. We can't waste them on things. You can't be buying pizzas and burgers and everything like that. This is funds that have been entrusted to you. So again, you need to be very, very careful. We're going to go to a small package now. And after the package, inshallah, as we'll come back, and we'll give you some of the sayings of the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam with regards to not usurping people's rights. Let's go to the package. Sallu ala al-Habib sallallahu ta'ala ala Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
The blessings of Ghos Azam.
When Ghos Azam rahmatullahi ta'ala alayhi was made to sit with a saint to practice his first recitation of Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, at the age of 5 years, he recited A'udhu, then Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, and then recite from the first para up to 18th para of the Holy Quran. The saint said, keep reciting. He, rahmatullahi ta'ala, replied, this is all what I memorize, because my mother also memorized this much. When I was in my mother's womb, my mother would recite up to 18 para. So I had memorized this much by listening to her. Whenever he, rahmatullahi ta'ala, would intend to play, he, rahmatullahi ta'ala, would hear to divine voice, "O Abdul Qadir, we have not created you for playing." When he, rahmatullahi ta'ala, used to go to madrasa, a voice would be heard saying, "Give room for the Allah's friend. Sallu ala al-Habib, sallallahu ta'ala ala Muhammad, sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam."
Sallu ala al-Habib, sallallahu ta'ala ala Muhammad, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We were talking before the break about usurping people's rights, and how we saw that the father of Ghos Pak, that when he went up that river and he found out that who was the owner of the apple, and he made sure that he fulfilled all of his demands so that he would not be held accountable for that on the day of judgment. The Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he asked the blessed companions, "Do you know who is destitute?" And the blessed companions humbly said, "O beloved Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, The destitute amongst us is he who has neither any dirham nor any other possession. And the Prophet of Mercy, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, said, no. In reality, these people are not destitute. Now listen to this, viewers of my channel. The Prophet of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, said, the destitute amongst my ummah on the day of judgment will be the one who will arrive with salah, fast, and zakah. But he will have arrived having abused someone, slandered someone, having extorted his wealth, shed his blood, abused him. Thus, in exchange for his sins, those oppressed people will be compensated with some of his good deeds from his account. And if his good deeds are not enough to repay what is due to them, then the sins of the oppressed people will be thrown upon that cruel man and the hereafter, and he will be thrown into the hellfire. So you may perform all these good deeds. You may fast. You may go and pay your zakat. You may pay your salah. You may go on hajj. You may have all of these good deeds in your account. But if you've abused someone, if you've slandered someone, if you've extorted their wealth, if you've shed any blood or abused anybody, any rights of people that you've abused, then what will happen will be your good deeds, one by one, will be given to that person. And then what happens is when you run out of good deeds, what will happen is the sins of that person will be transferred to you. So you will become destitute. Why? Because you will have no good deeds left with you. And you will have sins on your account that are more than you've even committed. Why? Because you've got your own sins to take care of, but also them sins of that person that you abused, that you slandered, that you took the rights of. His sins will now come on your plate. And you will be destitute on that day. The Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, you people will pay the rights to whom they are due. Even the hornless goat will take revenge on the horned goat. So whenever you abuse anybody, usurp anybody's rights, you'll be held accountable for it. You may think to you, oh, well, this person, I've taken his pen, I've taken his car, I've taken his watch, I've taken whatever. He can't say anything now. He can't say anything now. Maybe he can't say anything now. Maybe he's weak, maybe he's not, but on the day of judgment, you will be weak. On the day of judgment, you will be destitute. On the day of judgment, you will have nothing. And that's something that you need to be aware of, viewers of the channel. And so we need to have this God-fearing inside us and learn from the lessons of the past. Learn from these stories what the God-fearing that they had. Now, I know none of us have that fear inside us. And I pray that we do. That if something like that was to happen to us, that we were to find an apple on the ground, would we think that where's this apple come from? Where's this food come from? Nowadays, we see money on the ground, we pick it up. And we put it in our pocket. Oh, I found a tenner. Again, this is wrong. The scholar said that if you find something that's valuable, leave it there. Leave it there. And the rightful owner hopefully will come back and pick it up. It's not yours, so leave it there. Nowadays we see that, I've heard of taxi drivers, that they end up having loads of mobile phones. Why? Because unfortunately passengers have left their phones in the car, so they've collected all these phones. And they've got all sorts of collections of phones now. They've not made an attempt, even try to get in touch with the owner or find out the owner of that mobile phone. People have left things in the car. Yes, there are honest people, and we hear about them. We hear about those honest people, that bags of money have been left in the car, and they've found the owner of that money, and they traced him down. And you even see, I hear these stories of people in the poorer countries, that when they find things that have been left behind in their cars, in their rickshaws, in their buses, and they're very expensive, they will trace down the owners of them, even though they themselves need that money desperately. But no, they will go and find out who the owner of that is, and they will give it to that person as well. And I remember many years ago seeing a video of yours on the channel. I don't know if you saw it, that there was somebody in the desert, and he was a sheep herder, and someone tried to buy a sheep off him, and he said, they are not mine to sell. They're not mine to sell. I'm just a sheep herder. And they said to him that, if you sell us one sheep, who's going to find out? There's hundreds of sheep here. The owner will never find out. And he said, Allah is watching. Allah is watching now. And He will see that I have sold this sheep to you. He will see that I have sold something that is not mine to sell. Allah is watching you. And that is a mindset that we need to develop, viewers on the channel, that Allah is watching you. Whatever you do in your life, remember this, Allah is watching you. You can switch off the light, think nobody can see you. Close the door, think nobody can hear you. Go to a different place and think nobody knows you. But Allah sees, Allah hears, Allah knows. Everything. Everything. You may think just because you forgot the sins that you committed, don't think that just because you have forgot, it's been removed from that book of deeds. And so as Muslims, we need to reflect and think. And what happens is, unfortunately, and I know we're going slightly off the topic, what happens is we remember the good deeds that we've done. Remember the Hajj that we've performed, the Umrah that we've performed, the Zakat that we've given, the wells that we've made, the masjids that we've made, and all that money that was spent in the way, and all of them things, we remember all the good deeds. But then we forget our sins. And what we need to do, viewers of the channel, we need to reflect on our sins. One, we don't even know whether them good deeds have been accepted. No guarantee. No guarantee whatsoever. But them sins, you're going to be held accountable for them. You need to think about them. You need to reflect on them. You need to repent from them sins. And if the need arises that repentance is not enough, that you've usurped someone's rights, then you need to recover that as well. You need to go and seek forgiveness from that person. If you've abused someone, if you slandered someone, then it's not enough just to say, Ya Allah, forgive me for slandering that brother. No, you need to go and find that brother and seek his forgiveness as well. If you usurp someone's rights, it's not just enough to raise your hands, Ya Allah, forgive me for taking the rights away from that brother, for stealing that off that brother, for taking that off the brother. Ya Allah, forgive me. No, go back to that brother, return his goods, and seek his forgiveness. That's how serious it is, viewers on the channel. So we cannot afford to forget our sins. We need to constantly be aware of the sins that we have committed, seek repentance from those sins, and if need be, go and seek forgiveness from them individuals, that the rights that we have observed, viewers on the channels. And if we look, viewers on the channel, about our pious predecessors, they would take great care regarding hukuk al-ibad, i.e. the rights of people. As we have already heard the blessed parable of the father of Ghos Pak Rahmatullah Ta'ala, and we should also follow in the footsteps of these blessed people. It is stated, viewers on the channel, that Sayyidina Musa Dost, who was the father of Ghos Pak, his piety, his taqwa, his calling people towards righteousness was highly admirable. And he was a man of abstinence and self-restraint, who struggled hard against his nafs. He remained deeply engaged in worship and devotion, and he invited other people towards righteousness and preventing from evil. And he never dared to stake his life for this noble cause of enjoining what is right and forbidding what is wrong. It is stated, viewers on the channel, that once he was going towards a masjid, Jami Masjid, and he saw that some servants of the king were heading to the palace of the king, and they were carrying clay pots, big clay pots with alcohol on their heads. He became overcome with the passion of stopping people committing sins, that he rushed there and he broke those pots. He broke these pots, and having saw the awe and the majesty of Abu Salih Musa, rahmatullah, no servant would dare do anything, and they left without saying a single word. But they related the whole incident to the king, that this is what happened. Now the king, he was angry. He was angry that this person had broke my clay pots of alcohol. And the king summoned Sayyidina Musa, rahmatullah ta'ala, to his court. And Sayyidina Musa arrived there and found the king sitting on his throne. And he was flowing in a rage. And the king said to him, "Who are you to waste all the efforts of my servants?" Sayyidina Musa, rahmatullah ta'ala, replied, "I am superior, and I have just discharged my duty." Allahu Akbar. The king said to him, "Who are you to waste all the efforts?" And he said, "I am the supervisor, and I have just discharged my duty." The king said to him, "Who has designated you as the supervisor? Who has given you the responsibility to do this?" Sayyidina Musa, rahmatullah, replied in his awe-inspiring and domineering voice. He said, "The one who has appointed you the king, the one who has appointed you the king has appointed me as the supervisor." And listening to such a straight and forward reply and becoming overcome with deep emotions, the king put his head on his knees and he crested after a while. He said to him, "Except for enjoining what is right and forbidding what is wrong, what was the wisdom behind breaking the clay pots?" Sayyidina Abu Salih Musa, rahmatullah ta'ala, said, "For the sake of saving you from disgrace in this world and in the hereafter. And while showing affection towards you, I did this." Now this wise conversation of Sayyidina Abu Salih Musa, rahmatullah, inspired the king greatly. And he said, "O pious man, you are also appointed to the designation of a supervisor on my behalf." He said, I want you to be my supervisor. Allahu Akbar. Sayyidina Musa rahmatullahi replied in a very relaxed manner. He said, when I have been designated by the Lord Allah Azza wa Jal, then after that privilege, I need no designation from any creator. And since that day, he was known as Jangi Dost. Allahu Akbar. Viewers of Madani Channel, we can see a lot from this incident as well. That the awliya of Allah, the friends of Allah, they would not be overcome by wealthy people. Now what happens is when we're in the company of wealthy people, when we're in the company of influential people, then what even happens is, Allah forbid, that we see people that would normally read the namaz 5 times a day, but now they're in front of an influential person. Now they're in front of a wealthy person. The time for namaz has come. They don't get up and go to read the masjid jamaat. The time for namaz is going. They don't read the namaz. Because, oh, I'm sat in the company of this person. And again, this is something that we need to be very wary of, viewers of the channel. Not to be overcome by wealthy people and powerful people. There is nobody more powerful than Allah Azza wa Jal. That person can do nothing to you. And what happens is that you need to be very, very careful, because these people, unfortunately, and I'm not going to generalize here, but sometimes, viewers on the channel, people that are in these sort of, that are not God-fearing, I would say, that are not following the deen, then if you sit in their company, then you could become part of the conversation that they are taking on. And sometimes that conversation could go towards kufr as well. And by you nodding with them, when they're saying something, you're going, yeah, then you're agreeing to that kufr. So you need to be very, very careful, viewers on the channel, which company you keep, which friends you keep, and never be overcome by these people. Like he said, the father of Ghos Pak said that, what designation do I need from you? Allah Azza wa Jalla has given me this designation. Allah Azza wa Jalla has given me this responsibility. I don't need anything from you. And that should be our mindset. Our mindset should be that we are followers of the deen of the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We need to have that taqwa inside us, the fear of Allah Azza wa Jalla inside us, rather than having the fear of these people, being influenced by these people, overcome by these people. No, viewers of Madani Channel. We are Muslims. We are proud of that. And we follow Allah and His Rasul, and we follow the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We're going to take a small break now, viewers of Madani Channel. We've got a kalam for you, inshallah. But when we come back, we're going to continue talking about this topic. Let's go to the kalam of the day. Sallu ala al-Habib sallallahu ta'ala ala Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
Ghos Pak, Ghos Pak, Ghos Pak, Ghos Pak, Ghos Pak, Ghos Pak. मेरे गौसे आज़म, प्यारे गौसे आज़म, मेरे गौसे आज़म, प्यारे गौसे आज़म। सुल्तान विलायत गौसे पाक, वलियों पे हुकूमत गौसे पाक, शाहबाज खिताबत गौसे पाक, फानूसे हिदायत गौसे पाक, गौसे पाक। महबूबे सुबहानी शाह जिलानी, कुतुबे रब्बानी तंजीले नूरानी। महबूबे सुबहानी शाह जिलानी, कुतुबे रब्बानी तंजीले नूरानी। तेरी मदह हर ज़बां गौसे आज़म, तेरी मदह हर ज़बां गौसे आज़म। तेरा नाम मोमिन की जान गौसे आज़म, या गौसे आज़म। महबूबे सुबहानी शाह जिलानी, कुतुबे रब्बानी तंजीले नूरानी। महबूबे सुबहानी शाह जिलानी, कुतुबे रब्बानी तंजीले नूरानी। पनाहे गरीबा तेरी ज़ात वाला, पनाहे गरीबा तेरी ज़ात वाला, पनाहे गरीबा तेरी ज़ात वाला, पनाहे गरीबा तेरी ज़ात वाला। तेरा घर है दारुल अमा गौसे आज़म, या गौसे आज़म। महबूबे सुबहानी शाह जिलानी, कुतुबे रब्बानी तंजीले नूरानी। महबूबे सुबहानी शाह जिलानी, कुतुबे रब्बानी
कंदील नूरानी जिसे शक हो वो खिज़र से पूछ देखे 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 तेरी मजलिसों का समा गौसे आज़म या गौसे आज़म महबूबे सुबहानी शाह जिलानी कुतुबे रब्बानी कंदील नूरानी महबूबे सुबहानी शाह जिलानी कुतुबे रब्बानी कंदील नूरानी जमील अब हो साकित मकामे अदब है 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 कहाँ तेरा मोर कहाँ गौसे आज़म या गौसे आज़म महबूबे सुबहानी शाह जिलानी कुतुबे रब्बानी कंदील नूरानी महबूबे सुबहानी शाह जिलानी कुतुबे रब्बानी कंदील नूरानी सुल्तान विलायत गौसे पाक वलियों पे हुकूमत गौसे पाक शाहबाज खिताबत गौसे पाक फानूसे हिदायत गौसे पाक गौसे पाक
Viewers of Madani Channel, you're watching Yesterday, Today and Tomorrow, and in these series of programs, particularly in the month of Rabiul Akhir, we're going to be talking about the great personality Ghos Pak Rahmatullahi Ta'ala, about his upbringing, his life, his family, his virtues, his knowledge, his worship, inshaAllah Azza wa Jal. But today we're talking about his family and his fathers and his grandfathers, and we see that the lineage that he came from, they were very keen and made it part of the routine to invite people towards the path of righteousness, to make sure that if people were committing sins, to try and stop them from committing sins. And the example that we gave you before the break was where there was a person who had the clay pots, the servants had the clay pots on the head that were carrying alcohol. And the father of Ghos Pak, he broke them pots and drained all the alcohol to save the king from disgrace, to save the king from disgrace in this dunya, and to save the king from disgrace in the Akhirat as well. But we also learn from that they were also not overcome with the fear of people when it came to stopping people from committing sin, which again is something that's very important. And this is something that happens with Azam, that we see sins being committed, but we don't do anything about it. We see people committing sins, but we just turn a blind eye. And you know, when you become aware that something is wrong, then you should do something about it as well. In the book Bahari Sharif, which is published by Maktabat al-Madina, it is stated on page 615 on the 3rd volume that Sadr Sharia Badr Tariqa Alama Mufti Amjad Ali Azmi Rahmatullah said that if there is a strong likelihood that they, the evil doers, will follow his advice refraining from evil, then in this case it is wajib for him to fulfill the obligation of enjoining good and forbidding evil. It becomes wajib upon you. But the thing is we have this mindset that nobody's going to listen to me. Oh, it's not my problem. It's his sin, isn't it? But it becomes your responsibility as well. Knowledge, when you become aware of something, it becomes your responsibility. And I remember, viewers of Madani Channel, we traveled on a Madani Qafla many years ago. And we took these professionals with us. And we went to a different country. I'm not going to mention the country. We went to this country. And in that country, the state of the Muslims was such that they had very few places of worship. They hardly had any masjids there. They were struggling there. And I remember one of the brothers, he was from the legal profession. And on the last day of the Madani Qafla, he said to me that, brother, you should not have brought us here. And I thought, what's gone wrong here? And I said, what do you mean? What's happened? What's gone wrong? Has anything gone wrong? And he said, no, nothing's gone wrong. He said, but now I know that this is the situation here. On the day of judgment, I will be asked, what did I do about this situation? That the Muslims here, because here in England, where we are now, you know, not very far from where we are here, there are masjids, there are madrasas, there are jamias, there are all of these things here, but there are still a lot of areas in Europe and probably in America, in Canada, and many, many places around the world where there are substantial Muslim communities, but unfortunately there are no masjids or madrasas, anything there. And he said that now because this has happened, you have made me aware of it. If I didn't know, then I wouldn't be held accountable. And that is a mindset that we need to have, viewers, that when something happens, we cannot just turn a blind eye. Why did you turn a blind eye? Because it's not my problem. No, it is your problem. Maybe you were in that position there. Maybe Allah Azza wa Jalla put you in that place there to be able to stop that evil. And you refrain from that. And like it says in that book that I just mentioned earlier on, that Mufti Sahib said that if there is a strong likelihood that that person will follow your advice, then it becomes wajib upon you to stop that person from doing it. And so our task, viewers on the channel, is to call people towards righteousness, not to make them accept. Remember this. You know, you cannot force someone. If you see someone that isn't reading the namaz, the time for Jamaat comes and they're not reading the namaz, and they're not your responsibility, basically they're not your children, and they're not going towards the masjid. You can't force them to do that. But you can advise them. Can you come and read it's time for namaz, let's go read namaz. You can advise them that the month of Ramadan is coming, here's a Ramadan timetable for you fasting. You can advise them that, look, you need to be paying your zakat, this is how you work it out, if you need any help then let me know. The time for Hajj is coming, you can advise them that, look, I believe that mashallah, Allah Azza wa Jalla has blessed you with wealth, Hajj is further upon you, you need to go and perform the Hajj. But we cannot force them. And so again, you need to get the right balance there, but at least try. Try to enjoin good. Try to forbid evil. But what we do is we just turn a blind eye. Well, not my problem, is it? I'm all right. I'm reading my namaz, why should I care about them? I'm not committing my sin, why should I compare it? No, it is our responsibility. As Muslims, it is our responsibility to call people towards the path of righteousness. And again, it's been stated in that book, Bahari Shariat, on volume 3, page 615. If someone is seen committing a sin, then forbid him seriously and gently, and he should be made to understand in a proper way. If this method does not work and he does not abstain from it, then he should be reprimanded with severe words, but he should not be abused, nor should swear words be uttered. And even if this does not work, then the person who is the ruler or the king can do something by his hands, such as if the person drinks wine, then his wine should be poured down, the vessel should be broken. If he sings songs, then his musical instrument should be broken. But that is only the job of the king or the ruler, not your job. Your job is to explain to them. And so that's what we need to do, viewers on the channel. Calling towards righteousness, it is a duty on all of the Muslims. It's narrated, and just to give you the reward, viewers on the channel, how great the reward is, you know, in calling people towards righteousness. And this is what Madani Channel is about. This is what Dawat Islami is about. Dawat Islami is all about. The whole mission statement of Dawat Islami is that I must strive to rectify myself and strive to rectify the people of the whole world. And in rectifying people of the whole world, you're calling them to the path of righteousness. It is narrated by the Prophet of Allah, Sayyidina Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. He asked Allah Azza wa Jal, Ya Allah, if someone brings his brother towards righteousness and prevents his brother from sins, then what would be the reward for such an individual? Allahu Akbar. Allah Azza wa Jal replied, that I will write the reward of 1 year's worship in exchange for each word, and I feel shy to give him punishment of the hellfire. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. If a brother prevents him or calls him towards righteousness, not meaning though that if you are successful, marhaba, good. But even if you're not successful, then you need to carry on with that mission. Carry on calling people towards the masjid. Carry on calling people towards the deen. Carry on calling people towards learning the Quran. Carry on calling people towards adopting the Sunnah of the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Whether they listen to you or not, your job is to call. And I remember when I was young, I went to Pakistan and we had, I think it was my father's uncle. My father's uncle. And whenever the time for namaz would come, he would get up and he would say, it's the time for namaz. If anybody wishes to come, I'm going to the masjid now. And he would set off. He would never look back. He would never look back to see if there was anybody following him or anybody. No, because in his mind, his job was to give this dawah, to call people to the path of righteousness, to call people towards the masjid, and his job done and he went. And that is something that we need to have in our mindset, to call people towards the deen of Islam. And inshallah, we'll talk a lot more about that, inshallah, in forthcoming programs. But we're going to take a small package now. We've got a small package, inshallah. We're going to go to the package, and then after the break, we'll finally sum up a little bit about the life or the childhood of Ghos Pak, insha'Allah Azza wa Jal. Let's go to the small package. Sallu ala al-Habib, sallallahu ta'ala ala Muhammad, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
Dear respected viewers, inshallah, today we will learn few beautiful traits of Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa barik wa sallam. Whoever would call the beloved Rasul sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, he sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wa sallam would bless him with the reply by saying labbaik. Allahu Akbar. So we can also follow this beautiful sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. And further, whenever anyone whispered anything in the blessed ear of Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam, he sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam did not pull his blessed head away from the speaker's mouth until the speaker finished. The beloved Rasul sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wa sallam would never sit having his legs stretched when the blessed Sahaba radiyallahu ta'ala anhum would be present in his blessed court. If someone would visit Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam, sometimes he sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam would lay down his blessed shawl for him. In fact, he sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wa sallam would even offer his cushion to the visitor. The blessed Rasul sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wa sallam would call the blessed Sahaba by their kunya and by their names which they liked. He sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wa sallam would speak slowly and clearly with incredible dignity, allowing any listener to count the number of sentences if he wished to. Subhanallah. So these were few blessed habits of Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. May Allah tabarak wa ta'ala give us tawfiq to follow beautiful habits and sunnah of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Sallu ala al-Habib sallallahu ta'ala ala Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
Sallu ala al-Habib sallallahu ta'ala ala Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Viewers of Madani Channel, you're watching Yesterday, Today and Tomorrow. And today we are talking about the parents of Ghos Pak rahmatullah ta'ala, and obviously that impact that it had on his life, because the household that you are brought up in has a huge impact on you. And if we were just to sum up, some of the things that Ghos Pak did in his life, it stated that more than 500 non-believers embraced Islam at his hands, and it said that more than 100,000 thieves, transgressors, innovators, and simple people sought repentance. So many people accepted Islam at his hands, and many people repented from the sins that he gave. But how did that happen? And so if we can, first and foremost, we can see that we were talking about calling people towards the righteousness. Ghos Pak, his whole life, he was involved in calling people towards the path of righteousness. But we can also see, the mindset. Where did that mindset come from? That mindset came from that beautiful household that he was brought up into. That taqwa of the father, the taqwa of the mother, the God-fearing of the father, the God-fearing of the mother as well. And that environment had a huge impact on the child. It is stated that when Ghos Pak was a young child, as it was the tradition of the child, that once the child was just over 4.5, then they would come to the madrasa and they would read Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. They would start reading the Quran. And when this child came to the madrasa the first time, he recited Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, and then he started reciting Surah Fatiha, then Surah Baqarah, and he continued and he continued and he continued and he continued and he recited 18 Sapara of the Holy Quran that he knew from by heart. And when he was asked, how is it that you knew 18, and how is it possible that you had these 18? And he said, I learned these 18 para whilst I was in the womb of my mother. Allahu Akbar. And nowadays science backs up this, that the environment that the child is, even before the child is born, the environment that the child has affects that child. So if a child is in a household, they say that when the mother of the child is smoking, then that smoke affects the child. But the environment also affects the child. If they're living in a house where all day long they're watching films, they're watching dramas, then that has an impact on them. And you see that when that child is born, and that film and drama comes on, he starts jumping about. That child jumps about. Why? Because that child had been hearing that film and drama, that drama music, that song, whilst it was in the womb of the mother. But if that same child, before it was born, it was listening to the tilawat of the Quran, it was listening to the zikr of Allah Azza wa Jal, it was listening to Durood Pak, then that has an impact on the child. And it's been scientifically proven as well, viewers on the channel. And we see from the child of Ghos Pak, then when he went to the madrasa, 18 sapara that child learned. 18 sapara that child recited. Why? Because he knew them. What are our household like? What is our upbringing? Everybody wants a pious child. But a pious child doesn't come, by just spending a few pennies. You can't just go and buy a pious child off the shelf, yeah? Or you go and buy the best phone, I'll buy the best phone, right? But if you want a pious child, you cannot buy a pious child. A pious child is not there because of money. A pious child is there because of your efforts. A pious child is there because of the environment that child is brought up in. And that is something that we need to look at. What is our household like? We expect our children to read their namaz, but we've never read our namaz. And children, we see nowadays that children are growing up confused. They're confused because what happens is they go to the madrasas. They'll even come to the madrasa to Madinas of Dawat Islamiyah. When they're in the madrasa, the teacher will get them to read the namaz because the namaz will come and maybe 2 namazes come during that time. They'll read their namaz. But when they go home, the topi is off, the jubba is off, the Quran is put on the shelf, the qaida is put on the shelf, and they never see it again. And they read the namaz once or twice a day. And so that child is brought up thinking to himself that, when I go to the madrasa, I need to read my namaz. But when I'm home, it's okay. Why? Because nobody else does it. You see them households where the father is waiting for the child outside to pick up that child from the madrasa. He's sitting in the car. The time for Asr is there. The time for Maghrib is there. The child will not be released from the madrasa until that child reads his namaz. But the father, Allah Azza wa Jalla, has not blessed him with the ability to come inside the house of Allah Azza wa Jalla, come inside the masjid and read his namaz. Does that not have an impact on the child? Yes, it does. We don't want our children listening to rap music or house music or whatever you want to call it nowadays, but we're listening to songs. We don't want our children going to the cinema, but we're watching films and dramas at home. You want your child to be pious, but you need to be an example. And unfortunately, viewers of my child, this is where we are going wrong. We think that our children, we give them to the Imam Sahib, we give them to Hafiz Sahib, we give them to Qari Sahib, he'll sort them out. Yeah? Hafiz Sahib, mashallah, is here in the studio with us. We give our children to Hafiz Sahib, sorted. He's there with them for an hour and a half, children are sorted. No, what about your life? What about your environment? What are you doing? Do you even care about their environment? Yes, you ask your child, what homework did you get today? Yes, you ask your child, what did you learn at school today? But do you ever ask your child, what did you learn at the madrasa today? What did you do at the madrasa today? Did they give you any homework today? What du'as have you learned today? Have you ever asked your children? And this environment we need to create, viewers of the channel. And if we look, as we're going back to the environment in which Ghos was brought up in, the family, the father and the mother, had a huge impact on that child. And inshallah, in coming programs, we're going to talk more and more about that as well. But you need to, if you want a pious child, viewers of the channel, you need to change. We need to change. And Dawat Islami is here to help you in many, many environments. And you're just watching one of them. Madani Channel is one department of Dawat Islami that can help you, empower you, give you them tools to enable you to protect your children, to protect your iman. Sallu ala al-Habib, sallallahu ta'ala ala Muhammad, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
The special favor of Allah, Holy Allah. The universe is the body and its soul, Holy Allah.